The announcement itself deserves to be described in detail, because the way Toyota chose to unveil the 2027 Stout tells you something about how the company is thinking about this truck and about this moment in the truck market. Toyota did not do a traditional press event. They did not rent out a convention center and set up a stage and run a CEO presentation with a reveal video and a theatrical moment where the covers come off the car and the spotlights hit. They did the thing that, frankly, every automotive company should consider doing when they have a truck to show that is built for the outdoors. They took media to a location, a real location, one that required a drive on real roads, followed by a drive on real dirt, and they let the truck announce itself through the experience of driving it, rather than through a presentation about driving it. The pre-production trucks were loaded, aired down, and driven on a route that had been specifically chosen to put the relevant capabilities on display, not in a controlled demonstration setting, but in the natural course of getting somewhere that was worth going to. The media who were on that drive experienced the truck the way buyers will experience it, and their accounts of the event have a unanimity of positive impression that is difficult to manufacture, and that suggests the truck earned its reception, rather than simply receiving it. The specific terrain on the announcement drive has become a talking point in the truck community because several of the media attendees who were present described sections of the route that would have been challenging for most trucks, and that the 2027 Stout Trail Pro apparently handled with a composure that generated a specific kind of real-time enthusiasm, the kind where you hear other people react at the same moment you react, and you know that what just happened was genuinely good. One journalist described a loose surface climb that the truck climbed on the first attempt without drama, while a support vehicle from another manufacturer had to make 2 attempts and still required significant wheel spin management. Another described a creek crossing of meaningful depth and current that the Stout navigated without the hesitation or the water intrusion into the cabin that some attendees expected based on their experience with other trucks in similar situations. These are the kind of real-world moments that become the early data points of a truck's reputation, the first tiles in the mosaic of owner experience that will define the 2027 Stout over the years of its production run. The decision to run a turbocharged engine across the entire 2027 Stout lineup, rather than maintaining the naturally aspirated base option, is one that will generate debate, and it is worth exploring the reasoning behind it in more depth than the simple observation that it was made in response to buyer feedback. Toyota's product planners have access to data that none of us individually have, specifically the complete picture of how 2026 Stout buyers used their trucks, what loads they carried, what terrain they drove, and how the engine's performance relative to those demands was experienced. That data, in combination with the dealer feedback about what buyers were telling salespeople during the purchase process, and what owners were telling dealers during service visits, tells a specific story about the relationship between the naturally aspirated base engine and the expectations of the buyers who chose it. The story appears to be that buyers who chose the base engine based on its appeal of simplicity and long-term reliability found themselves, in real-world loaded conditions, wishing for more available torque at the bottom of the rev range more frequently than they had anticipated. Not constantly, not catastrophically, but with a regularity that made the difference between the naturally aspirated and the turbocharged option a real, felt difference in the ownership experience rather than a theoretical one. Toyota's response to this data, which is to eliminate the naturally aspirated option and commit fully to turbocharged power, reflects a confidence in their turbocharger technology's reliability that is backed by the performance of previous Toyota turbocharged engines across long ownership periods and high mileage accumulation. The concern that naturally aspirated engine advocates have about turbocharged alternatives, that the additional complexity of the turbocharger and its associated components reduces the long-term reliability that is, the Toyota truck's primary value proposition, is a legitimate concern in the abstract. Toyota's data suggests it is not a material concern in the specific context of their current turbocharger technology as deployed in the new 2.4-liter unit. The failure rates, the service intervals, the component longevity data that Toyota has accumulated from the deployments of this engine family across their lineup shows a reliability profile that is, in Toyota's assessment, comparable to the naturally aspirated alternatives that preceded it. Whether the market accepts this argument fully will be revealed over time as 2027 Stout owners accumulate the miles that validate or challenge Toyota's confidence. The hybrid system upgrade in the 2027 Stout is technically the most interesting part of the announcement. For anyone who cares about where truck powertrains are going, and it deserves a more technical discussion than the simple description of what is new. The expanded battery capacity does more than simply extend the electric-only range and the power export capability. It also changes the fundamental operating envelope of the hybrid system's torque fill function, which is the capability that allows the electric motor to provide instantaneous torque during the brief intervals when the gasoline engine's turbocharger is spooling up from a low boost state. In the 2026 system, this torque fill function was excellent within its operating range, but was constrained by the battery's state of charge management, which meant that in sustained situations where the torque fill function was being called upon repeatedly, the available fill torque could reduce as the battery's short-term energy delivery capability was managed to maintain the battery state of charge. The larger battery in the 2027 system has a deeper reserve that allows the torque fill function to operate at full capacity for longer sustained sequences, which in practical terms means that the engine's turbo lag is effectively invisible for longer periods of demanding use, including the extended climbs and sustained loaded acceleration that working truck owners regularly encounter. The control software rewrite for the 2027 Stout hybrid system is where Toyota has applied the most intellectual effort, and where the real-world data from 2026 Stout hybrid owners has made the most direct contribution. The 2026 system software was designed based on Toyota's understanding of how a hybrid Stout would be used, derived from simulation and from the experience of hybrid systems in Toyota's other vehicles. The 2027 system software is designed based on how a hybrid Stout is actually used, derived from the telemetry of thousands of real Stout hybrid owners who drove their trucks in the real conditions of real ownership over a real model year. The difference between predicted use and actual use in this dataset was significant enough in several specific scenarios to justify a comprehensive software revision rather than a parameter adjustment. The most significant difference was in the frequency and severity of the traction demand events on mixed-surface terrain, which turned out to be more varied and more rapid in their changes than the simulations had predicted, requiring faster decision-making in the control software's torque distribution logic than the 2026 calibration was optimized for. The 2027 software addresses this with a revised decision architecture that reduces the latency between sensing a traction event and responding to it, and that makes better predictions about what the traction demand will be in the next moment based on a more comprehensive set of inputs from the vehicle's sensor suite. The integration of the 2027 Stout with Toyota's connected services ecosystem has been expanded in ways that go beyond the in-vehicle technology improvements, and that address the way Toyota supports Stout owners throughout their ownership period. The over-the-air update capability, which was present in the 2026 Stout for the infotainment system, has been extended in the 2027 to include the hybrid system control software, the terrain management system calibrations, and the driver assistance system parameters. This means that Toyota can deliver improvements and corrections to these systems as they are developed and validated, without requiring owners to visit a dealer or to wait for a next model year to benefit from the learnings that accumulate from the owner fleet's real-world experience. The first over-the-air update for the 2027 Stout hybrid system has already been described in the preliminary documentation as available at launch, reflecting Toyota's commitment to delivering the best available software from day one rather than the version that was finalized for production months earlier. The Trail Pro's approach to the recovery ecosystem is worth discussing separately from the skid plate and bumper upgrades, because it reflects a holistic philosophy about what it means to equip a truck for genuine off-road use. Toyota has thought carefully about the recovery scenario, which is the scenario where, despite the truck's capability, you end up in a situation that requires external assistance or self-recovery, and they have designed the Trail Pro to address that scenario comprehensively rather than partially. The factory winch mount provision in the bumper, which we have already discussed, is the most obvious element, but there is more. The anchor points at the rear of the Trail Pro are rated to a higher load than the standard Stout's rear tow hooks, and they have been positioned and oriented to provide better strap geometry for the most common rear recovery scenarios. The chassis has been specifically reinforced at the recovery point attachment locations to handle the peak loads of a winch recovery or a kinetic strap extraction without the structural distortion that can occur when these loads are applied to attachment points that have not been engineered for them. And the electrical system in the Trail Pro has been upgraded with a higher capacity alternator that maintains the battery state and the available electrical power during the sustained current draw of a winch recovery, preventing the voltage drops that can cause other systems to malfunction during extended recovery operations. The 2027 Toyota Stout's approach to the camping and overland use case has been refined in several specific ways that reflect the rapid growth of this use case within the Stout owner community. The 2026 Stout became, somewhat to Toyota's surprise though perhaps it should not have been, a significant participant in the overlanding community, a community that values reliability, longevity, capability, and the specific quality of a vehicle that can be depended upon in remote situations where failure has serious consequences. Toyota has responded to this community's adoption of the Stout with specific engineering attention to the features that matter most for extended overland use. The power export system upgrade has already been described, but Toyota has also added specific provisions for roof rack mounting that are factory engineered for the load ratings that serious overland roof racks impose, eliminating the need for the aftermarket reinforcement that roof rack users often need to add to trucks whose factory roof structure was not designed with heavy roof-mounted equipment in mind. The bed's new lockable understorage compartments are specifically sized for the storage needs of the overland use case, and their positioning has been informed by consultation with members of the overlanding community who could speak to the specific items that get stored in the bed during multi-day expeditions, and what storage geometry would serve those items best. The manufacturing quality story for the 2027 Stout is something that Toyota has been careful to address explicitly in its communications because the rapid development timeline from 2026 to 2027 has naturally prompted some observers to ask whether the pace of change has been achieved at the cost of the manufacturing precision and build quality consistency that are central to the Toyota ownership proposition. The answer that Toyota's manufacturing team has provided is that the 2027 Stout has been through the same quality validation process that every Toyota truck goes through before it reaches the production line, and that the specific changes in the 2027 have been validated in production trial runs that confirmed the build quality consistency meets Toyota's standards. The new turbocharged base engine, in particular, has been in production across Toyota's lineup for long enough that the manufacturing quality for this engine is not a new challenge. It is a known process, executed by people who have been building this engine for some time. in facilities that have been building this engine for some time. The specific Stout-optimized calibration of this engine is new, but the engine itself is not, and the quality assurance around it benefits from the accumulated experience of its existing production. PAR. The dealer preparation for the 2027 Stout launch has been more comprehensive than the preparation for the 2026 launch, reflecting both Toyota's learning from the 2026 launch experience and their expectation of higher demand and more technically sophisticated buyer questions for the 2027. Every Toyota dealer who will carry the Stout has been required to complete a comprehensive training program that covers the 2027's new powertrain technologies, the Trail Pro configurations, specific capability enhancements, and their maintenance requirements, and the new infotainment and connectivity systems, including the terrain preview feature and the expanded connected services. Service technician training has been updated to include the new hybrid system architecture and the Trail Pro's shock absorber service requirements. And demonstration vehicles are being provided to a specific set of dealers in the regions where Stout demand is expected to be highest, allowing prospective buyers to experience the truck before committing to an order, rather than making their purchase decision on the basis of specifications and reviews alone. PAR. The international expansion of the Stout lineup is something that Toyota has hinted at in its 2027 communications, and while the full details of international market availability have not been confirmed, the signals are clear enough to be worth discussing. The 2026 Stout was primarily a North American market product, with limited availability in a small number of other markets where Toyota's truck lineup overlapped with the Stout's positioning. The 2027 version, with its broader powertrain range and its improved capability, is expected to expand into additional markets where the combination of off-road capability, reliability, and compact to mid-size dimensions addresses a specific buyer need that is not currently served by the global Toyota truck lineup. The markets that Toyota's product planners have been discussing in the context of Stout expansion are the ones where the Hilux is the dominant Toyota truck, but where a step up in comfort, technology, and on-road refinement would be welcomed by a portion of the buyer population without sacrificing the fundamental durability and capability that makes the Hilux irreplaceable in its traditional markets. Whether the 2027 Stout meets that expanded brief is something that the international rollout will determine, but the engineering decisions that have been made for the 2027 version suggest that Toyota has been thinking about this expansion as it has been developing the truck. PA. I want to spend a moment on what the 2027 Toyota Stout means for the segment it competes in, because I think the significance of this truck's development trajectory goes beyond the immediate competitive considerations. The Stout, from its 2026 introduction, has been demonstrating that a truck can be both genuinely capable and genuinely efficient, that these qualities are not in fundamental tension when the engineering is done thoughtfully. The 2027 version extends this demonstration further with a hybrid system that is now the most capable in its segment and a Trail Pro configuration that challenges full-size, off-road trucks for real-world capability. The implicit argument that the Stout is making to the truck market with each generation is that the trucks of the future do not have to be bigger or less efficient or more environmentally costly to be more capable, that the path to better trucks runs through better engineering rather than through increased size and increased consumption. This argument is not yet universally accepted in a market where full-size trucks continue to grow and where raw power numbers continue to be an important factor in purchase decisions. But the Stout is making the argument with increasing conviction, and the 2027 version is the most convincing version of the argument yet. PAR. The real owners who will take delivery of their 2027 Toyota Stout in the first quarter of next year are the people whose experience will ultimately determine what this truck's legacy will be And thinking about who those people are and what they will do with their trucks is the most grounding exercise available at this stage of a vehicle's launch. They are the contractor, who was on the waiting list for a Trail Pro as soon as the configuration was announced, and who has already planned the first modification to their new truck in the form of a winch to fill the new factory mount. They are the couple who has been planning an overland trip for 2 years and who was waiting for the right truck before committing to the route, who read about the terrain preview feature and the expanded power export and immediately made their decision. They are the first-time truck buyer who has been driving a crossover for the past 5 years and who decided, after reading the 2026 Stout reviews and then the 2027 announcement, that this was the right moment to make the move to a truck, and that this was the right truck to make the move to. All of these people have different specific uses for the truck and different specific features that determined their choice. But they share one thing: they are buying the Stout because they believe it is the best available answer to their specific question about what a truck should be. Toyota's job from this point forward is to confirm that belief at every service interval and every trail end and every loaded highway morning, for as long as each of these people owns their truck. Based on the evidence of what Toyota has built, I believe they will. The long-term reliability story of the 2027 Stout will take years to fully tell, as it always does with any truck, because reliability is not a property that can be fully verified at launch. It is a property that is revealed through time, through the accumulation of miles and hours and uses and conditions that constitute real ownership. But the inputs to the 2027 Stout's reliability story, the engineering decisions and the material choices and the manufacturing standards and the quality validation processes that will determine what that story ultimately says, are the best that Toyota has ever applied to this specific truck. The turbocharged engines that now anchor the lineup carry the reliability heritage of their engine family and the specific attention to Stout application durability that Toyota's engineers have applied. The hybrid system's expanded components are covered by an extended warranty that reflects Toyota's confidence in their durability. The Trail Pro's upgraded shocks and suspension components have been validated through a testing regimen that specifically includes the most demanding use scenarios that the target buyer will impose on them. And the electronics and software that govern all of these systems have been developed on a platform with a track record of stability and a commitment to ongoing improvement through over-the-air updates. The foundation for a strong reliability story is in place. The story itself will be written by the owners, and if the 2026 Stout story is any guide, it is going to be a very good one.